One of the last untouched stretches of South Africa's famed Wild Coast is at the center of a battle that pits extraction industry development against a pristine environment. It's also neighbor against neighbor among a people struggling to hold on to a centuries-old way of life. NewsHour Weekend special correspondent Martin Seemungle has our report.
Their message is defiant: no to mining in their community.
It's going to destroy our way of life completely.
Tensions are high on this day in Xolobeni. South Africa's Minister of Mineral Resources is visiting. He wants to hear from all sides. There are dozens of heavily armed police, and within minutes, stun grenades and tear gas. Chaos. Another twist in a saga that's been going on for over a decade. A few miles away, the source of the controversy, stunning red dunes on one of the last untouched stretches of South Africa's so-called Wild Coast. It is sparsely populated, but home to an ethnic group with a rich cultural history and distinct language, the Pondo people. They call it Pondoland, and they have lived here for centuries. To the people of Pondoland, the colors here symbolize the blood of the people, the importance of their ancestral land. But the redness is also a marker. These hills contain extremely rich deposits of a widely used metal, titanium. It is among the top 10 deposits in the world. Its potential annual revenue is estimated at $180 million. An Australian mining company, Mineral Resources Commodities, MRC, won the rights to develop the Xolobeni site in 2008. Resistance to the application began the previous year when the Amadiba Crisis Committee was formed. There are 12 people on the executive and there are 3,000 members from the community. Sia Onduvela is a member of the committee, often called the ACC.
Yes, once the mining comes, all this nature you can see around here, it will be destroyed. We won't see it again. Even our grandchildren, they won't see it. So for us, we have to save this nature. We have to save this land.
Save it from being turned into this. A titanium dredge mine on South Africa's coast further north has had a dramatic impact on the land. It's been operational for decades, leaving no doubt among many that the same will happen here. The proposed mine site at Xolobeni covers 14 miles of coastline and goes over a mile inland in places. An estimated 70 families, just over 600 people, would have to be relocated. Kamandla Mtwa can see those red dunes from his house.
If I move from here, I lose my life. It will change completely.
Titanium isn't the answer, they say. Tourism is. The pristine coastline, a perfect environment to develop a thriving ecotourism industry with long-term potential.
Mining is just a short term. As they told us, the lifespan is 22 years. After 22 years, the land is being destroyed and it's irreversible.
In the face of community resistance and its own environmental questions, the South African government withdrew the original approval of 2008. 3 years ago, the Australian company reapplied and enlisted the support of the traditional Pondo chief here, Lunga Beleni, and created Zolco, a community-based company, to give MRC a local footprint. But the Crisis Committee says the chief cannot consent to mining on behalf of the people. Instead, he must relay the will of the people, and in this case, they argue, the people weren't properly consulted. They took the issue to court in April, demanding that the people must have the right to say no. In November, a South Africa High Court judge ruled in their favor, stating mining rights cannot be granted without the full and formal consent of the community. Johan Lorentzen is a lawyer representing the Crisis Committee.
Whereas the chief would traditionally have a consultative role and facilitate the gathering of consensus by the directly affected people, he's instead become a director in the mining company and has signed an affidavit indicating that his office will receive 4% of revenue once the mining starts.
Chief Beleni did not respond to repeated attempts to be interviewed. Traditional chiefs were given extra powers under apartheid, but nothing changed when apartheid ended nearly 25 years ago, when Nelson Mandela's African National Congress swept to power. Power it still holds. Today, there is frustration with the ANC. Nonle Umbatuma says her grandfather was part of the Pondoland Rebellion in the 1960s, a famous uprising against apartheid. In the worst clash, 11 people were killed, 58 were injured. Apartheid ended in the early 90s, and Umbatuma celebrated the first all-race election in 1994, but is disillusioned now.
Before 94, it was better because we know our enemy. Now, our own people that we hope they were going to do the right thing for us are the people they push us away from the land.
Gwede Mantashe, South Africa's Mineral Resources Minister, is an important advocate for the mine. He disagrees with the recent court decision and has filed an application to appeal it. In coming weeks, the judge is expected to rule if the appeal will be accepted. He believes where there are deposits, there must be mining. In the case of Xolobeni, he says it would improve the lives of people in one of the poorest areas in the region, as would development of the tourist industry.
To deprive such a community right to development is actually injustice. In terms of that community, it is not mining versus tourism. It is tourism and mining together.
The anti-mining lobby disputes that scenario. Any mining, they say, along this beautiful coastline would make it impossible to develop tourism. But there are some Pondo people in favor of mining. This is a community built on traditions that have thrived for generations because it is fiercely united. But over the last 10 years, that unity has eroded. Today, the community is more divided than ever over mining. Not just more divided, but more violent, leaving many fearful. Several people have died in recent years under what the community believes are suspicious circumstances. Bonkile, who asked us not to use her last name, says she's against the mine and also afraid of her pro-mining neighbors.
The people who support the mine so many times come to fight us, kill us using the gun, the poison.
Xolobeni alleges that her son was poisoned, murdered because he opposed the mine. His name was Jabulani, and the community believes many others died for the same reason. But there have never been any convictions or arrests to corroborate the allegations. Sikosipe Radebe was shot to death by armed men 2 years ago. He was the leader of the Amadiba Crisis Committee. Nonle Umbatuma says she spoke to him just before his murder. He told her about a hit list, and she was on it. To this day, she restricts her movements and often has a bodyguard.
I don't have muscles to fight, but when it comes to tell the truth, I do have all that qualification to tell the world what is happening. That is why I was number one on the hit list.
Organizations involved with the mining companies could not be reached for comment, but in the past they have vigorously denied any involvement with the killings. NewsHour Weekend asked MRC Australia for an interview about the violence. The company refused an interview on camera, but Peter Torre, a company director, did respond via email saying, in relation to the allegation of violence, the company has no comment to make on this other than to say it does not condone violence in any form. The mining issue has become so divisive that it has split families here. Mavo Undavela says he can't go to family funerals or any ceremony.
I hate the division in the community. Even my own brother is pro-mining. I can't do anything with my brother or his family.
Those that favor mining argue it will bring desperately needed jobs. Siyabonga says he has been unemployed for over a year.
It would be good from my side, you know.
Would you want to work in the mine?
Yeah, as I used to be a mine worker before. Yeah.
Following the death of Radebe 2 years ago, the government declared a moratorium on all matters related to the mining issue, effectively freezing the application process. But the Mineral Resources Minister says the moratorium cannot continue indefinitely.
We've accepted that right for people to say no. But we say those who have a right to say no must accept the right of others to say yes.
Yes to the promise of prosperity and development, or no to mining to protect a way of life that has existed for centuries.